So DC Comics had a bit of a tumultuous summer, to say the least, because after severing their ties with Diamond and shaking up the world of distribution, DC Comics unfortunately suffered massive layoffs after its parent company, Warner Media, began cleaning house. And these layoffs have severely affected multiple departments across the company, with the editorial, collectibles, and DC Universe teams getting hit especially hard. I believe it was somewhere around 20% of their workforce. So obviously, our hearts are with all of those who lost their jobs. This is a very cruel time for something like that to happen. But what do you think this means for the comic book industry at large? Henry, let's start with you. You might be muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, sorry. Yeah, I'm in the Valley near Burbank. I have a lot of friends that work at DC Comics, that have families, and this is really a devastating loss for a lot of people that have given their lives to the comic book medium in these corporate structures. And there's some amazing talent out there now as far as editorial that I'm assuming will be absorbed somewhere else, because when you have that, there's a lot of people that have a lot of connections within the comic book industry. DC Comics has had such a strong, I guess, resurgence with printing monthly comics and graphic novels, and we're looking at this as it's just really unfortunate to see these characters be kind of put under a lens that's going to be for basically adaptations, which is what it's always been about. But yeah, this is a huge ripple effect within the comic book industry as far as people that work for the publisher and a lot of retailers that rely on DC and Marvel products. So yeah, we're in uncharted territory, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point with how it's going to affect the industry as a whole, and also like whether or not they're just going to use these characters as launch boards for other properties. Jim Lee, who is the publisher over at DC Comics, he's still with the company, and he had a wide-ranging interview with The Hollywood Reporter, and he wanted to dispel some of these rumors. He asserted that DC is still in the business of publishing comics, and he tried to assuage fans that AT&T and Warner Media want out of the publishing business. That said, they are still trimming a lot of their lines. I think he referred to it as kind of the bottom 20-25% of their titles, things that weren't meeting their sales goals. And I know they're going to be experimenting more with digital comics versus print comics. Like Injustice, those comics based on the video game were extremely high-performing digital titles, and then they also had success as a print title when they made that leap. So using digital as perhaps an experimenting ground for print comics moving forward. But Liana, what do you think is what do you see as the path forward for DC in the wake of this? How do they step forward positively out of a loss like this?
I'm not on the publishing side of things, so I really respect like Henry's view of things, and it's really nice to know somebody that's kind of knowing what's going on. But as a previous working in retail, digital has always been like the future of things that we know that will be successful, in that the delivery there's no overhead and whatnot. And it looks like, from what you could tell already with them doing the Injustice thing, and I know that even I think the Walmart exclusives that they were originally doing ended up going to digital too. So it would be nice if, they continued to keep a lot of the creators and editors on to, keep telling these stories and utilize the fresh stuff for these IPs or licenses, and maybe even possibly do a model in which Marvel has done, where they go through IDW and release certain types of characters and books, and hopefully see them be as successful, and if not, bring in more of the comic industry under their belt, which would be really a dream thing in terms of like still revitalizing the comic industry, especially because most of it is on rocky waters with 2020. So, and obviously my heart goes out to everybody at DC and everything like that. So that's, yeah. I think digital.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Digital's, sorry.
Sorry, were you going to say something, Henry?
Yeah, I also want to add there's a lot of women that were promoted to like more positions of power. Like Marie Jervins is the I guess editor in chief now, who's worked at Marvel and who's behind a lot of the YA books and just the comics for the last decade and a half. So we're hopefully going to see more people like that get more recognition.
Yeah, and one of the things I liked about Jim Lee's interview is that he also mentioned they're going to revive the Milestone Comics imprint and try to still have some experimentation outside of the kind of tried and true characters of Batman, Superman, etc. Get some fresh ideas and voices in there as well.